All right, thank you everyone for joining me today. I apologize, my voice is a little hoarse. I just recently am getting over a cold, so I might have to stop and drink a lot of water and tea along the way. So I appreciate your patience today. First, I want to thank you for joining me for this webinar series today on preventing compliance complacency in your cannabis business. I felt it was an important topic to tackle just because one, I'm an ex-dispensary manager, and now I'm a compliance consultant, and I still see the same issues that were around when I was a dispensary manager still happening today, and I keep coming across places that have some complacency issues. So I just really felt like this was a really timely topic to cover for people in the industry. Yeah. Sorry. I'm like, why is it not working? Oh, it's going backwards. Of course. Let's try that again. I got too fancy. All right, so I just want to give you a little bit about my background. My name is Jenny Germano. I am the owner of ICS Consulting Service here in Denver, Colorado. I started in 2009 as an employee in a medical marijuana dispensary here in Denver. It was a boutique dispensary, and this was before we had the marijuana enforcement division. It was a very tumultuous time to be working in dispensaries because of the fear of being raided. Actually, part of my training, probably the first week on the job, was raid preparation and being ready for if the feds came in and memorizing our rights if we ever got raided and we're in that situation. And it was back when growers would come in dispensaries and bring duffel bags of cannabis, and we would just buy right out of their bags and put it on the shelf. Obviously, we've come such a long way in Colorado, and over my time working in the industry, I was a manager of 6 different dispensaries over a 6-year span, and I've worked for not fun places, and I've worked for some amazing people, and so I understand what the struggles are for owners and managers and employees in the industry, and I can relate to all of them. And I basically started my business because I just didn't want to be stuck in that brick and mortar anymore. And I really felt like I was ready to start helping more than just one person. And I'm an advocate for employees. I do a lot of employee-based webinars. I do believe there's a way to solve a lot of the employee issues that are happening and to support employees better and also owners in this industry. So that's just a little bit about my background, and right now I run my consulting business, and I actually am working, I can pretty much work in any state in the United States if anyone needs help in any state, basically. So my first slide is going to be what causes compliance complacency. Um, and I came up with a couple things that I thought were important in what I'm seeing and what causes compliance complacency. And one of them is lack of enforcement from regulators. Depending on where your state is, how long you've been regulated for, or if you're at the very beginning, what I'm finding in Colorado is that they have really focused on the black market, and they have not, we are regulated. I don't want that to get lost in this conversation, but we don't get inspected as regularly as you would think with all the regulations that we have. As an owner or a manager, there's about 800 to 900 pages of regulations concerning all of our licensed facilities, and that you have to stay on top of that. And I know a lot of places that maybe haven't seen the state or the city come in a year to 2 years and just do like a spot assessment of the facility to see where they're at. I do know newer places coming online have been inspected by the MED. It's honestly hit or miss is what I'm hearing from a lot of people. I have clients that haven't seen them in 3 years. And so I really do believe that the lack of enforcement from regulators coming in and enforcing even minor violations cause complacency, because then the attitude that begins to form is, well, I'm not going to worry about it until they come in and tell me I'm doing something wrong. And that can really put you in a sticky situation. Another one is lack of clarity with the rules. Um, so we see that there are some gray areas in the rules or lack of understanding, or maybe we have a mom and pop shop and they can't afford, to have, to reach out to their lawyer all the time to ask for clarification on the rules. And so they just try to read the rules and understand the best they can. So the lack of clarity with the rules can be somewhat daunting and put someone in a position like, well, what does it matter anyways? And this can really, in the end, really bite you, because once again, this could, lack of clarity of the rules could lead to a violation. It's the owner's responsibility, and the owner's responsibility to make sure that the employees are all knowledgeable of the rules, because this protects you against complacency in your facility. Another one that I found to be true is overregulation, which I believe we're experiencing in Colorado, of being overregulated. I'm all for regulation. I like having rules. I like having structure. It gives everybody a plan on how they should be and show up in their business. However, in Colorado, every 6 to 8 months, pardon me, get more rules. And just when we get adapted to one set of rules, now we're getting hit with the next wave of rules. And that overregulation can be overwhelming. And what I find when we get overregulated and overwhelmed, people tend to shut down, and they're not as open to what they need to do, and they become less engaged. And it has the opposite effect. You would think overregulation would be a good thing, but it actually has the opposite effect on people. And then they become less engaged with rules. This is a really big one that I'm finding in Colorado, but also in other states. Obviously not new states, because there's new states coming online, but if you are a new state coming online, and after a couple years, a year or two of regulation, you can begin to see where is everybody at with your training. Is this something mandatory? I know in Maryland, it is mandatory that the employees be trained on the SOPs every quarter. So they're getting training 4 times a year. There's some places where an employee only gets trained when they first start the job, where it's more like, hey, we're going to onboard you. Here's the training. Here's how we do things. Here's our handbook. And then that's it, and nothing else happens after that. So that alone, if you're just training an employee once a year where you're just onboarding them, that's not enough training for an employee. So not enough skin in the game. This could happen for a couple of reasons. If you're a bunch of owners in a facility, and each owner has a different amount of equity, and there's a majority owner and somebody else has a smaller percentage, sometimes not having enough skin in the game can affect that owner to not put in as much effort. And then when we get to the employee side of things, if employees don't have enough skin in the game, meaning really good incentives to keep them there, whether it's health insurance, a really healthy work environment to flourish in, all those things are important. I consider that being skin in the game for an employee, because employees have goals and dreams that they want to get to too, and that they want to work in a healthy environment and be treated fairly. So their skin in the game could be a little bit different than an owner's skin in the game. But at the end of the day, not having enough skin in the game can cause a lot of complacency in a facility. So how being complacent can hurt your business. I call this the silent killer of a business. Complacency can be sometimes hard to recognize, or a lot of people can be in denial that they're experiencing complacency. And so just right off the bat, I want to share that complacency honestly is part of our human nature, and that I don't want anyone who's watching this video or on this webinar or the recorded version to feel bad if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing these things in my business. I think everybody goes through this somehow in some business. Doesn't matter what industry. That this is just something that naturally occurs, and there's there's a way to prevent it. So how it hurts your business. One, complacency can hurt your business because it creates employee retention issues. If there's constant stuff going on in the facility, and meaning lack of compliance, lack of training, all those things, that can cause employees to not want to stay there and leave your business and go somewhere else that has better structure, better implementation policies. And then you end up becoming a revolving door. I worked at a dispensary where our retention rate was horrible. And as a manager, my hands were tied because I was not the owner of this company and I could only do the best that I could. The problem was a lot of the employees' needs weren't being met, and these aren't ridiculous needs. But like I said, employees want things. They want to be treated a certain way, like just having a good break room or keeping that break room stocked or having benefits, insurance, or even getting performance incentives. Oh man, sorry. I hope I don't cough through this whole thing. The next one is employees stop caring about your business. I believe that once somebody from the top stops caring, that trickles down and then affects the employees to stop caring. I see it time and time again, dispensary after dispensary, grow after grow that I go into. When I get in there and I see things awry and a mess, and I get down to the bottom of the issue, because even though I'm a compliance auditor, I come in and I audit people's facilities. I'm in there looking at everything. I'm not just auditing you on the rules, but I'm trying to find out what's your compliance culture, how happy are your employees, are the issues to why you're so out of compliance. Is it really a compliance issue or is it a leadership issue? And that's part of my job of coming in and auditing a facility. I'm not just there to come in with a checklist and go boom, 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 you're good or you're not good. I can't take people's money and sleep at night not coming in and caring and trying to help the best I can with everything. And I believe that that the root of compliance issues, there's always something else going on. It's just not a compliance issue. There's someone not leading, there's not implementation going on, there's not training, or somebody doesn't care, and maybe because an owner doesn't care and the employees feel that the owners don't care, that trickles down to their attitude. So it can be a domino effect in your facility. It always starts at the top. So another thing that can happen is customer loss and lack of sales. Now, maybe this won't happen in your grow, or it could happen in your production facility with the person representing your brand and going out there and trying to sell to dispensaries who are your customers. But at the end of the day, when you're operating a dispensary, your customers are patients if you're medical and customers if you're retail. And that I was in a dispensary just stopping in to say hello, and I could tell the employees were not happy. I was not treated very well. They just wanted me in and out. They really lacked connecting to me as a customer, and that affected me. And I will never go back to that place again and purchase. And I asked questions, and what I found out was they felt because the owners didn't care, why should they care? And this was just from, I wasn't even on a job. I always stop in dispensaries just to kind of see what's going on and trying to keep up and talk to employees. It's more like a cold calling thing I do, but I found that really interesting. So if that's the attitude of your employees as a customer, that could affect me and even a patient, because patients, when you have patients on the medical side, they need a lot more attention and care because they're dealing with ailments and illnesses, and you have to spend a lot more time with them than someone who's coming in to recreationally buy. And you can lose your customers, and then that affects lack of sales. Unemployment claims. Boy, oh boy, this is a tough one because another reason is that you want to have a good retention in your facility and take care of your employees and all the things that I've been talking about since I started this webinar is unemployment claims. If an employee leaves and you get an unemployment claim, that can cost you anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 a month, depending on how much money that person was making or those persons were making. And you could be paying that for 6 months, where that 2 or 3 grand now that you're dumping into unemployment, that you could have spent half that amount just to take care of your employees and provide them with some incentives and benefits on a monthly basis. And not only that, but providing a really good work culture where everyone is trained and compliance is taken seriously, and you're combating the complacency issues. So also, complacency can hurt your business because it can foster an environment for internal theft. So if employees stop caring or become entitled, and employees only become entitled because they feel they're lacking something or not getting something they deserve or they're working hard for, and then what happens when you get into that place of entitlement, they lose respect for the business, and then they could steal from you. And I'm not saying all employees steal, but I've worked in an environment where we did experience employee theft, not only in this industry, but I also come from the restaurant industry world and catering. I did that for 23 years. And one of the catering companies I worked at, I watched employees steal all the time. And I always wondered, like, why were they doing that? And they were feeling that they deserved to take those things from the owner because they weren't actually directly getting those things from the owner and being taken care of. So you have to watch for what kind of environment complacency will foster. So another way it can hurt your business is that you can rack up violations, which then could lead to being shut down. It could also cost you a lot of money. And then what happens is this affects your entire workforce and your process culture. So what happens to all the processes that you've implemented? Well, everything just kind of fizzles out. And this is why I call it the silent killer. Because all this could be happening under your nose and you could be thinking, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. But have you taken the time to really talk to your employees? Do you do employee evaluations? How many facilities do not do employee evaluations? Employee evaluations is, one, you're giving that employee feedback, but two, you're providing them a safe space to give their feedback as well, and you're helping them set up goals. All this can also help you with the complacency aspect of your business, is making sure you're communicating and having contact with those employees. I understand that some owners don't work in the business, they're working on the business, and then you have a management team. That management team should be communicating with the lower staff employees as well to make sure that the culture is alive and well. So at the end of the day, what this means is complacency costs your bottom line, and it can be prevented and save you much more than money. And so, like I said before, obviously there's costs that affect you, lose sales, get unemployment claims. But what about your reputation with your clients, or what about the reputation amongst the cannabis industry on whether that's a good place to work or a not good place to work? I've gone online to places like Indeed.com or Monster or wherever that people post about, they post job offerings. And you'll see in some comments in some sections that one place is just getting beat up by ex-employees. This is not a good place to work. Stay away from that place. And because of the internet today, your business can be affected in 5 seconds or less by a bad Yelp review. They could go on your Facebook page and write bad comments. You can rate your business as a 1 star. All these things can add up. And so you need to be sure that complacency not only affects you internally, but it can affect your business externally. Okay, so how to course correct and fix the issues. So one is that you want to engage in compliance. This could be as simple as reading the rules, attending workshops, get more involved in compliance even as an owner. So if you're an owner working in the business and on the business and you're just starting out, I highly recommend you just know everything. You know how to run metric, you know all the rules and regulations. Because when you start stepping back from your business, when you're continuing to work on it and you're not working in it as much, you need some kind of checks and balances to make sure the team that you hired are doing all the right things. Because at the end of the day, your business is going to be held accountable. Those employees will be held accountable to their badges or however every state does it. But in Colorado, employees will be held accountable to whether or not they can keep their badge or not. But your license is also affected as an owner. And so you can't just say, oh, my employees went amok and they didn't follow the regulations. I just don't think the NED is going to be okay. Well, cool, you get off and we'll go after them. So you just have to be careful as an owner that you have a really solid compliance team and leaders in place at the top if you are not working in the business side by side with your employees. Another thing that you could do is you could attend more workshops. Obviously, coming to my free compliance webinars. There's lots of free content out there that you guys can find. There's also, you could obviously get paid content as well, but whatever you can do to stay engaged in compliance. The working groups, which will be this summer, they'll start this summer around August, or the MED. If you cannot get in a working group, the new set of rules and regulations that they go in and work on, you can attend those meetings for free. They're open to the public, and it's such a wealth of knowledge and learning just attending those workshops. I used to attend them all the time when I was a manager, just because I wanted to find out all I could and know what was coming and the new regulations to be prepared to how to operate the dispensary I was running. So you want to assess your workforce and compliance culture. Not a lot of people think, oh, I should assess my workforce and compliance culture. I know places now that, well, let's start with this. When I was an employee, I had no way of knowing who the heck I was taking a job with. I mean, this is 2009, 10, 11, 12. There was no way. There was nothing online. People barely had Facebook pages and stuff back in those days. There was no way for me to know what kind of facility. I mean, I didn't even see their bud half the time because they didn't meet on site. You didn't get to interview on site, and you couldn't see if they had a good product or anything like that. And so I think that employees should know whether or not they're going into a company that has a good compliance culture or workforce culture. So nowadays, because everything is more rampant on the internet, I really do believe that you can research those things and look at reviews and find out what kind of place you can go in and secret shop at that place if you really want that job to see what the atmosphere is like. But you should, it's really important to assess your workforce and your compliance culture. And this is, how do employees treat each other? How well do employees listen to the management? and owners, are a lot of employees complaining? Are there employees that stir the pot and start drama? Like, why are those employees still at that business? There's a lot of things that you can assess. The compliance culture, are people too relaxed around compliance? Are they like, oh, well, that doesn't matter, the MAD never comes in, or the state never comes in and inspects us? That's all your culture, and how compliance, how engaged you are in compliance, but also how people treat each other and the environment, and if it's a good, healthy environment. Because when you take a job in this industry, you want to flourish. I do not believe employees of today just want to go clock a punch card. I don't. I think people want a purpose, a mission. They have goals. They have a career they want to embark on. So all those things are really important to employees. So also, you want to audit your processes and systems. Sorry, I'm just getting caught up on my list right here. You want to make sure that you're auditing, because this will be your guide to make sure that you're engaged fully with compliance and that nothing is slipping through the cracks. So each facility, you should be auditing, doing an internal audit once a month. As a manager, you should just have a nice, simple checklist of the things that you want to check every month. But also, how are your intake processes? What is that like? How are your, have you audited how every manager is intaking product? Are you auditing the person doing your metric? Are you auditing your point of sale system? Have you gone in and checked, make sure someone's not selling past 7 o'clock or 10 o'clock, depending on your jurisdiction and where you are in your state and what time sales need to be done? Are you auditing all your systems? And that could be included down to how merchandising is being done, how the purchasing manager is being done, how the lead bud tender is doing, and all the other bud tenders, checking the history on the point of sale systems. How would you know if somebody was actually stealing money from you out of that drawer? What safeguards are you taking to make sure no one's letting in someone under 21 in your dispensary? These are all things that you can audit. These are all different processes and systems. How about your management system? Is your manager a leader? Or are they not a leader and they're more just, well, they're friends with all the employees? One of the things which was really tough, it's really tough to do in this industry because it's a community and people want to get together and smoke marijuana. However, as a manager, I couldn't hang out with my employees because it blurred the lines. As an owner, you should not be hanging out with your employees. As a manager, you should not be hanging out with your employees. Now, if you do something that's for business, a social gathering that's put on by the company, that's a different thing. But what happens is when you blur those lines and you need to go implement things, you're not going to be taken seriously because now you've blurred the line of authority. And that's why, as an auditor and a consultant, I never spend personal time with my clients ever or their employees. I need to stay in an authoritative position because I need people to take me seriously because I'm there to help them in their business with compliance. So that's the approach I took as a manager, and it's a lot easier now as a consultant to really keep that hard line for myself. But it was challenging as a manager because, of course, you're facing, I want to fit in and I want people to like me. And people think, oh, if I hang out with my employees, they'll like me and listen to me. It does the opposite. It does the opposite. Trust me, I've been there. I've made the mistakes. That's why I do these webinars, because I've made all these mistakes. I've been through all these experiences. And it's why I have my business to help people. So audit your processes and systems. And that, that could include, I always highly recommend a third-party audit once a year, just once a year. So it's like $1,200, $1,500 once a year that you're investing. And I like to do them right after the rules and regulations come out in January in Colorado, because there's so much to read and catch up on. Things fall through the cracks. So I highly recommend just making that one-time investment. I work with people that do it every 6 months. I have people that do it every 3 months, do it quarterly, the 4 times a year, and I have people do it 1 time a year. But you shouldn't do it any time a year, like not at all. Even though if you have a compliance officer, a compliance team, a lawyer, I've had all those people that had all 3 things, and I've gone in and found at least 5 or 6 things they still didn't know they were supposed to be doing. So it's just something to think about, making sure that you stay up on your own internal audits, to have an outside person come with outside eyes just to see what's going on. Sorry again for the coffee. So create and implement structure. So my question to you is like, what tools are in place to hold employees accountable? So if you go and you create structure, awesome. And I think structure is standard operating procedures, employee handbook, any kind of processes or anything that you create, your business plan, the rules and regulations, that's structure, which is nice because it's already written for you. So you just have to be engaged in it and follow it. But I've been in a lot of places where I go into their grow or their store or their production facility, and the SOPs have about 3 inches of dust on them. And when you go to open up the book, it's like opening an old rickety door that hasn't been open in like a year. And it really concerns me because you spent all this time and money getting all these processes and procedures put together for your business, but yet now we've shelved it. Those books, those SOPs, that handbook, all that stuff should be revisited at least quarterly or every 6 months in your business. It should not just be, oh, we onboarded you, welcome to the team, now you're on your own. You should be having once a month compliance meetings with your staff. When I was operating a dispensary, every morning right before we opened, I had a little quick team powwow with my team, whether I went over what was going to be the sales strain of the day, what edibles we needed to move, if it had to do with expiring products, maybe a new rule came out. Maybe it was a reminder to staple the receipt, staple the back shut when people were leaving. Could be a reminder to make sure all the bud tending stations were stocked. But I kept engaged with my employees every shift that I worked. And also for managers out there that have a big team, or maybe 2 or 3 managers, one thing that we came up with was really helpful tool is that we created a manager log. Basically, it was a little binder notebook, and what we did is each manager would just, and you can do this on the cloud, you don't have to do in a notebook, but each manager at the end of the night would just write in comments, whether, hey, this employee was doing amazing, or hey, we had this issue. So when the next manager comes on duty, they can open the book and be caught up on what was going on in your culture, in your facility. It's a great way to communicate with other managers and team members to keep the chain going, making sure everyone's on the same page so no one's getting mixed signals about anything. I'm sorry, I'm just reading. So another thing, one of the questions too I wanted to ask is, well, and a statement, but having the structure for your employees, we talked about you got to have SOPs, handbooks, and a job role, job description. I only worked out of my 6 years of working in dispensaries and 6 different jobs, I only worked at one company that gave me a job role. One company had a job role for me, my job description of what my duties were. I still work in places where they do not have job roles defined. It is so important to have a job role defined as an employee. You never know what you're doing right or wrong. Then what happens is the managers are always just talking at you. You need to be doing this and that and that. Where if I knew my job role, I could be more proactive in my job role. And I know, and then I basically, this is the structure that I operate. It doesn't mean if someone asks you to do something out of your job role that you become disgruntled and say, well, I'm not doing that. That's not part of my job role. I think being a team player is also important in this industry. But having a job role creates structure for that employee to flourish within. So that's a really important structure. But once again, you can't just create it, you have to implement it. And just because you implement it once doesn't mean that, oh, that's it, we're good. No, it's constant re-engagement. You have to constantly re-engage your processes and your procedures in your facility. Okay, so invest in compliance and training. Like I said before, are your employees being trained quarterly? Like I mentioned in Maryland, they have to be trained every quarter. They have to fill out an attestation form saying, I have read the above SOPs, list all the SOPs, and that gets put in their employee file. And the reason for that is because that creates accountability. And you need to have accountability in your facility with your employees. It keeps everything in line, it keeps your employees in line. But at the end of the day, it helps your employees flourish. I mean, it's kind of like with children that if you didn't have structure for your children, they would run wild and crazy. It would be a nightmare. And you have to discipline your children because obviously they act like children and they try to push boundaries. Employees are no different. They're going to try to push boundaries, and they'll push the boundary. And if you don't implement or course correct or hold them accountable, they'll just come back and try to push the boundary further. And it's going to be a runaway train. And for all the moms and parents out there, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like, you really have to lay down the law with your kids. You do the same thing with employees, and that will just keep them more contained in the structure. I'm sorry, I'm just checking my notes. So continuous education is really important, I believe, at facilities. Every facility type, whether you're a grow, you're a producer, or you're a cultivator. One, this creates a culture of compliance, keeps your employee, and then it keeps your employees engaged in compliance. It fosters a compliance community that will combat complacency. This also shows your team that your business cares about them and cares about compliance. It eliminates the I don't care attitude from your employees. And it also, one of the reasons, like I said, one of the reasons employees stop caring, it always comes from the top. There has to be something going on in a management level or an owner level or someone higher up that employee or somebody that's not leading or setting a bad example to why that employee would act that way. Because for the most part, employees are subordinate. They're not, I mean, of course, you get some people who stir the pot and they become insubordinate and you let them go. But for the most part, employees, they want to come and work and earn a paycheck and earn a living and work on their career, their goals, and their steps. So when you invest in compliance, you invest in your employees, and when you invest in your employees, you're actually investing in your business. You're investing in yourself as a business owner. It's kind of nice. Like, it's kind of like this big circle. If I start investing in all these things, it actually starts to connect the dots, and things start to run like a really well-oiled machine. So don't blur the lines. I talked a little bit about blurring lines as a manager and an owner and hanging out with your employees. But another thing I wanted to talk about, so not blurring the lines means having integrity with your words and your actions, whether you're an employee, a manager, or an owner, or an investor, that having integrity with your words and actions, it means everything. If you say you're going to do something for your employees, if you say, oh yeah, I'm going to be giving bonuses, or we're going to do this for you guys, and you don't do that, I can't even tell you what that does to an employee. It's really horrible feeling inside that when you keep getting promised things and then no one follows through. It really does affect the morale of your employees and your work culture. So you cannot blur the lines. You have to show up with integrity. Don't take advantage of the gray areas. We have many gray areas. And this is a very hot topic, but for those who are in Colorado, we had a rule where it was you could only sell an ounce, on the retail side, it was one, I think it was like one per transaction. It didn't say like per day or anything. It was very gray. Um, and this rule has been around a while, even back when I was a dispensary manager. We knew to not sell more than an ounce a day to that person. So if we saw them come back in again, we would tell them we can't sell to you again. And I know it's so convoluted, it's like a big bag of worms. However, I'm just trying to give an example of a gray area that are very complicated gray areas. And that was an extremely complicated gray area because people were really thinking, well, I'm following the rule. It says I can sell, per transaction. And even though that the state meant no per transaction per day, and they didn't have it in the rules, people were still selling ounces and ounces and ounces all day long to the same people. And it's really tough to be in that situation because you're like, what do I do legally? Because legally you're like, I'm following the rules. But the word on the street, and most of us that ran dispensaries, most people I talked to, we all knew that you didn't sell over that ounce, even though the rules didn't clearly state it. And even if you reached out to the MED or the state to clarify the rule, they would just tell you to check with your lawyer. So these regulations can be a catch-22. So you have to be careful. You have to think going, okay, how can I just go above and beyond? Here's a rule. It's super gray. How do I avoid getting caught up if they decide to come up and clear up this gray area and now I'm on the wrong side of it? I always say go above and beyond what is expected of you in your facility. I believe creating a buffer is important. And that's how you create a buffer. You could say, no, we're just going to create an internal policy at our business where we don't serve over that 1 ounce limit per day per person. Even though it's not in the rules, I worked at a medical facility where, let's say, we had patients coming in saying they could buy 4 ounces. Honestly, we were really terrified to sell those patients 4 ounces. We knew we could sell them 2 ounces. We were so insecure in what the state might do to us if we sold them 4 ounces. It wasn't very clear, it didn't really say, oh, if that patient has paperwork and that doctor recommended them 4 ounces, that you could sell 4 ounces. You couldn't find that anywhere in the rules. I know if you have paperwork and you back up your plant count and all that, and there's people who do it all the time, but as a store, we still felt uncertain about it. And so we made the choice to only sell 2 ounces. It's not right or wrong. You can do it. You can go and sell someone 4 ounces that has the recommendation from the doctor. We felt insecure and a little uncomfortable if state was to flip on us, and then we would be on the wrong side of the rule. So I'm telling you, you have to use your best judgment and obviously talk with your lawyer to find out when you're in these gray areas, what their best advice is to you legally, and what are the consequences if you're on this side of it or this side of it. Also, like I said, you want to go above and beyond of what is expected of you. And I share that with everyone, especially anyone starting in a new state. Go above and beyond, because that buffer one day can save you in your business. Oh yeah, here, read it one more time. Damn. So you want to create a culture of compliance. I have been saying this for years. A compliance culture is what stands between you and getting a violation. Your employees are the last line of defense when it comes to compliance in your business. They should be the most trained. What is interesting is that we have bud tenders, which are below managers. So they are a low-level employee. I don't mean that they're less than, but I'm just saying on the chain of command, they're at the bottom of the totem pole. However, they are your last line of defense with compliance. So who do you think should be the best trained at your facility besides the management? Your low-level staff. They should be having training every month, every quarter, because they're the ones checking IDs. They're the ones making the sale recommendations. They're the ones making sure they're not selling over that ounce limit or 2-ounce limit, depending on what your state is. So those employees, they're the last line of defense. If an undercover cop comes into your facility, they're not going to ask to see the owner. They're going to go to that low-level employee and see if they let them in with that fake ID and see if they let them buy that cannabis on that fake ID, not the owner. So that's why those employees need to be trained the most, and they should get the best education and knowledge possible, even on checking IDs. If you don't have an ID identification scanner where you can scan someone's ID, you should be reaching out to your police department. In Colorado, you can reach out to your local police department. In fact, Boulder PD does a monthly ID checking training up in Boulder, and you can go and sign up for their class and get an ID training on how to spot a fake ID, how to read an ID properly. And I think they give you like a little card that's good for like a year or 2 years. I can't remember the expiration on it. So that right there, that alone builds a compliance culture, and all the things that I talked about, having an audit of your systems, your management systems, even you doing all your self auditing. One of the dispensaries I ran, the owner used to have me go, he would call it scrubbing. Jenny, go in and scrub our POS system. And this is on the medical side, because in Colorado, we have plant counts associated with our patients. And our grow is awarded plant counts by how many plants are signed over by that patient. That's what we can grow for them in our grow. We're not just awarded a tier like we are on the recreational side. And I would have to go in and scrub the system because if that plant expired, you didn't want to be growing that plant because that could affect your plant count and you could get shut down over growing over your plant count. And so I had to audit all of our plants, even though I wasn't working on the grow. It was still my responsibility because I was the one signing up patients. I was the one managing them. I was the one managing all the plant counts. And so it's really important to audit all these things. And that naturally just creates a compliance culture. You don't have to say, oh, I'm going to show up and create a compliance culture day. No, you just have to follow all the structure and processes that you've implemented and make sure that you're training and everyone's engaged in compliance. And that alone naturally or inherently creates the compliance culture for you and your business. But when all those things are lacking or missing, you're really, the compliance culture is obsolete. And then that affects your employees as well. And it affects your bottom line. Just reading over my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything. Thank you. So I'm going to take questions to you in a second, but I just wanted to let you guys know, if you ever need help in your business, your licensed facility, I only work with people who are applying for a license in the application process, working on their application, build outs, and licensed facilities. Feel free, I do free consultations. I love auditing. I'm not one of those people that's going to come in and audit you and make you feel bad. I'm there to educate you, train you. If you're a manager, I train the managers on my audits. They know how to self-audit themselves. I really take joy in doing my auditing. It's one of my favorite things I get to do in my business because I'm right there in the field trying to help you guys figure stuff out. You can always reach out to me, call me, email me, message me on Facebook. If you guys ever need help with anything. Here's my contact information. Go to my website. Here's my email. I know I sent you guys all way to sign up for this webinar, which you saw my phone numbers on there. You have my business email address. Feel free to reach out to me if you guys need a free consultation. The free consultation doesn't mean I'm going to give you a bunch of free advice, but I will help you see like how I can help you or what you need or how I can help you solve an issue that you're having. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free. I didn't see anything pop up in the chat box. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask them now. And if not, this will conclude our webinar today. I recorded this. I'm going to be uploading it on my YouTube channel. I will email out the link. If you decide that you have questions after this webinar, you can email me your questions and we can jump on a call. I really appreciate everyone joining me today for this webinar. And if you're in Denver, maybe I'll see you tonight at Sensi Night at the Expo Center. If not, I'll see you at my next webinar. Everyone have a good day.